Hello and welcome to episode 68. We're one away. One away, people. Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host. With me, as always, is Darick. Darick, what did you get up to in Flesh and Blood this week?
This week, I got up to a bunch of stuff in Flesh and Blood, but the most important thing, obviously, is I played in a pre-release. I wanted to play in multiple. However, we only had two that were within reasonable driving distance for me. One on Saturday, one on Sunday. And I was celebrating my youngest son's birthday on Saturday. Now, his birthday's not technically till this next weekend. And I don't know if you know this, Logan, but I'm going to be at this really cool Flesh and Blood event in Chicago that's being done for the Realm Circuit. Min-Max is partnering. It's going to be a cool brawl.
Rumor has it we'll be together.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a wonderful time, but unfortunately that means I was going to miss my youngest son's birthday. So we celebrated it this weekend. So I only got to play in the one. This is my long-winded way of saying, unfortunately, I only got to play in one pre-release. But I had a lot of fun, and I played multiple heroes at my pre-release as well.
There you go.
Just to mix it up, because I felt like I had a pool that was flexible, and I was like, you know what, it's pre-release, it's fun, let's do it. So yeah, that's what I got up to, the pre-release. And then
there you go.
When we cover our pre-release, because I see it in the show notes here in a moment, I will, tell the audience about my very lucky set of circumstances and runs and pulls, because if there's one thing you know about me, it's that I'm so lucky.
Run as hot as the sun at all points in time.
Yeah.
This is currently a no beer show, folks. This is we're drinking the Diet Mountain Dews. We're on the dry out after getting back from the desert. So anytime you hear something where somebody has to dry out after getting back from the desert, you know they had a good time. But yeah, I wound up, so I got home. It was great because I got home Thursday, which is our normal armory night that I run. And I got home after a long, arduous travel. Thanks Spirit Airlines for being dog shit, but better than American still. Like, I have much better luck on Spirit than I do American. We were delayed a couple of times, and there was some weather. I get that part. Then I get to Chicago, and they're like, "Oh, we lost your bag." I'm like,
wait, Spirit even let you do bags?
If you pay them, they'll let you do anything. And so I was like, great, sounds awesome. So I was getting ready to leave, and O'Hare's like a labyrinth, right? It's a giant fucking airport. And I'm just like, okay, well, I guess. And so I'm almost out of the airport, after the 3-mile trek from the other side of Narnia or wherever. And my phone rings, and Spirit, and they're like, oh, your bag's here. And I'm like, okay. Go back, get my bag, wander back, got home about 11 in the morning, I want to say. Took a nap, and then went out and ran an armory, blitz armory. So I wasn't trying to be good. I was trying to have fun. So I played Levia. I remembered my blood debt this time, like a champion. Which I guess being dog tired is the only way I'll ever remember a blood debt. And wound up 2-1. The one loss being very close one to Oldham. I beat a Kasai with Levia. All right. That's not quite what you would expect, but sure. And so that was a good time there. It was also nice because when I showed up, I forgot that I had ordered a couple cases of Tales of Aria First Edition, and they were just here on my kitchen table when I got home. That was nice. And my deck boxes, I should say, from the Professor had arrived as well. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, walked into Christmas. Pre-release wise, there were 3 able to be attended here. I only made 2 of them. The first one was quite good. It was a 32 player pre-release, and so just maxed out. That happened a lot. I want to say around the country, around the world really, where they were maxed out quite frequently. And from what I saw, which is kind of a feel bad. I would love. And I understand supply chain issues, and especially kind of after getting snake bit a little bit by the previous sets. But I would love for these to be just stores can order as much as they want and run them as big as they want. I think that's just a better thing for the game. And then the second one is one I ran today. 17 players, but we had 2 kits, or 18 players, sorry, and we had 2 kits. So it was like, okay, let's just give both kits away. And so we did. And that was a good time too. So let's dive into the pre-release notes. Darick, what did you play?
So because I had such an outstanding pool, I was telling Logan before we started recording that I opened very few actual rares. The first 3 packs I opened were single rare packs, and I opened only one Majestic, which was a Ponder run, the premeditate.
That's a really good one, though.
Yeah, it was a pretty good one. But I did happen to just open a ton of traps. So I decided I wanted to play multiple heroes, and I wanted to start on Riptide and then switch to one of the assassins. I ended up switching to Arachne just because I had nothing that was like worth using the swap ability with. I think I opened one sneak attack, no death touches. Like I didn't have any of the big hitters for the set. So I started on Riptide. That was a mirror, and it was a lot of fun. I ended up winning with a trap trigger. So I, got to check that off my bucket list very quickly. And we were, I think, both to 5 cards or less in our deck. I will say, I think that's the biggest issue with Riptide right now in Sealed anyway. I don't know how it's going to change for Draft, but in Sealed, it really felt like I was in danger of fatigue because you don't have weapons. And on top of that, you have your traps, but those are, even if you trigger them, they're only 1 point of damage, right? So you have to leak damage somewhere else, and that's where I was really struggling. In fact, when I was running Riptide, I was also running 34 cards, so I probably would have fatigued if I was trying to run it tight. But I did end up winning, and then I switched to Arachne because the other side of my pool was a bunch of stealth cards, and then I had 2 spikes of the rares I did open. I had 2 spikes, so we tried Arachne. That was also a lot of fun, and I don't think people were expecting an Arachne that was running like 6 traps, so that worked out in my favor because I just took all the traps and brought them over.
Right.
I ended up finishing 2nd place. So again, talking about the luck thing. The one game that I lost, I had my opponent at 1, and I tried to hurl a dagger at them, and they happened to have a blue brush off in hand to prevent the lethal. So I got
Gross.
2nd, did not get my cold foil Missouri. I'm still going to have to hunt down a copy of my Pummel Queen. Then to cap things off, as far as the luck goes, I didn't win the raffle, so they did a door prize for the 2nd cold foil, and there was a number of door prizes because my local game store is really awesome. So everybody went home with something, but I was the last name pulled from the door prize. So yeah, the luck just was outstanding top to bottom. I never won a dice roll either for choosing to go 1st or 2nd. Standard me, but
yeah,
but it was fun. I had a lot of fun. I'm actually very excited to try this set out in Draft.
Oh yeah.
Sealed was already a lot of fun, and Sealed is not. I love limited formats, but I'll be honest, it's not my favorite of the two because you are, unfortunately, extremely limited with your choices. Like I saw a bunch of ninja stuff that I would have loved to have tried out, but I didn't have like any combo lines, right?
Or blue zeros. That was a problem too. Zeros.
Well, so my thing was I didn't have like any of the connecting combo lines, and I also, for whatever reason, opened every attack that was like exactly 3 damage. So like I couldn't even try to cheat Benji in or anything. It was just straight up a bad time. So with Draft, I think that there's going to be a lot more flexibility. I also think that will help me with my Riptide fears so that you can get a couple of taller arrows, right? Because again, with Sealed, like if you open, a couple of good arrows, but then the rest are like mediocre, it's much harder to leak that damage. So I'm jacked to draft this set in the coming weeks.
Yeah. So in the 2 I had, the first one I went 3 and 2, played Riptide. I did not, I think I only had 4 traps, not 6. Like 6 is a fucking lot. But I also, like, I didn't have the payoffs for Azuri. The arrows were good. I did end up playing Azalea one of the rounds, and it was good. I mean,
yep.
But the one like notable thing, I was playing 34 cards into ninjas and assassins, and then 37 cards into rangers. And all 5 rounds went to fatigue.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I got in the Riptide mirror by the other Riptide having 38 playable cards to my 37. Got me good. And then I lost to an Arachne, which the second turn of the game was Infect, Spike with Blood Rot, the Infect, to deal 3 over the top, and then Death Touch me, red. I was like, that's 16% of damage. Like, I have 19 health. That's gonna be my hand. And also having to pay for at least one of the Blood Rots. Like, this isn't great. And from there, I just couldn't claw my way back. Again, went to fatigue. Like, I almost clawed my way back. So that was fun. Today, I went 5-0, so I did win. I do have a cold foil Pummel Queen, and a playmat to show for my work. But played Arachne today, and boy, was that. It feels like you're playing WTR Ninja, or kind of Fi as well. Like, they kind of have that feel.
It felt like Fi to me. It felt like the first stealth card is really just your sword instead of the other way around, right? It was like you get your free sword per turn, and then you get to do other things. The only other thing that I really enjoyed, at least on my end, was the attack reactions. Oh yeah. So like when you play Fi, it's all gas, no brakes, but it's also, you know, with the exception of I think there's only 2 in the set, and 1 is a majestic, right? There's like almost no attack reactions. One's a majestic,
and the other one's rapid reflex is a rainbow.
Right, but that one's also a rare. So like they just don't come up very often, and honestly, they're also not very good. Whereas
if Abby's listening to this, she's pissed. So
I'm just saying.
Okay.
So in this set, where you actually have good attack reactions, and it's balanced by really good defense reactions too, there's just a lot more interplay, right? So playing Arachne felt like playing Fi to me, but it felt a little more flexible because it wasn't just like I'm only just picking the order of my attacks. Instead, it was more like, when do I want to do the attack reaction, right? Which one do I want to try to hit? How do I want to do my sequence with my daggers to try to figure out the blocks, et cetera, et cetera. It just felt like there was a lot more agency in the games that I played, and I liked that. Arachne surprised me. I thought it was going to be like very generic or basic play patterns, and it was not.
Yeah, it's not at all. There's a lot of interplay. There's a lot of planning. Like, I was pitch stacking. Like, with an aggro deck was pitch stacking, like making sure that I knew it was coming up, knew when I was pitch stacking my attack reactions, like almost like clockwork. Like, had a couple of short and sharps, just making sure that I knew when they were coming up with blues to go with my daggers when the life totals be getting low. And then also hurls, like where I would have the extra resources so that it was all set up.
Was one of my favorite cards that I was playing because you use it to pitch early, and then it's something that's great for just trying to ping at the end. The other card that was a surprise for me while playing Arachne was Prowl, but not for the reason you think. Prowl is just good with Arachne, period. It's right? It's just great lead off. However, it was really good pitch stacking with my spikes, because when we'd get to the end and I would have multiple cards in hand, I would lead with a Prowl, and people would assume that I'm going to follow it up with another attack. So they would low block the first one, and then I would spike that and go over the top. And I won a game that way, and I ate defense reactions that they were trying to save for the second attack the other way. Like, it just... spiking that first Prowl was actually really impactful every time I did it.
Yeah, so the card that really got there, that did it for me, was Blue Plunge, because it was attack for 1 and you don't want to block it, but you want to block it. And I was usually playing that because it's go again too, like it, and it's great. and I was usually playing that with looking for a scrap in my hand.
Oh,
And so it
nice.
was like then into the 1 for 5, and then into a stealth, and then into something else.
So
Like,
I did not open any scraps, but I did have one of the, what is it, Bleed Out, the one that's like a 4 with Go Again that costs 2, but it's reduced in cost if
yep.
your daggers hit. So I
Mhm.
had one turn where it was I led with Plunge, and then when it hit, I popped my blade cuffs to boost my daggers, and then went dagger, but I had no resources left, but then finished off with that because the daggers had hit. And that felt really satisfying too.
Yeah, like that's beautiful. Um, and so for me, the card that like probably overperformed, even to like my expectations of this card, in across the table from me and me playing it, was Death Touch. That card was fucking scary every single time.
Every time. My
Never
round
not.
one opponent had 3 red ones, so I know exactly what you mean.
That's not okay. Like
If
that
I
is
wasn't running
100% not
6
okay.
traps, I would have been not having a good time. So for me, the other card that like really performed incredibly well for me as far as like the traps go, was the Frailty Trap.
Mm-hmm.
The Frailty Trap, the moment that I played the first one, because I had 2, so my trap suite was I had 2 Frailty, 2 Inertia traps, 1 of the Blood Rot traps, and then a Boulder trap. So that was my 6 traps.
It's a lot of traps.
Yeah. So, but the after I'd played the first one where if they have Go Again, you do the trigger, blah blah blah. I started noticing that my opponents would change their sequencing because of it, because they don't want to get got by the Frailty, and then it made planning my defensive turns more predictable because they were afraid of more Frailty traps. So like that worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah, I noticed that both, for me, both Inertia Trap and Frailty Trap were excellent. Both did so much work for the common traps. Like they were aces. The Blood Rot Trap was not good for me. I don't think I got it to trigger once.
I did against an Azuri.
Okay.
And that makes sense. I think it's for that matchup. Otherwise, it's just a surprise defense reaction. And honestly, like the defense reaction for 3 was useful at times. But in that Azuri matchup, it was nice because it was basically take 2 because they had no hand left to pay for their Blood Rot at that point. So it was just a nice, easy, like I blocked with 3, they did the swapsy, and then I blocked the second one, right? Or because they would went up to 6. I forget which attack it was, but they went up to 6, right? So then I blocked that out, and then I also did 2 damage, right? Like it was everything you want to do to stuff that.
Yeah, the other card that I thought was kind of underwhelming, I think largely due to the number of cards that have damage can't be prevented printed on them, was Peace of Mind. Like it was great into the Rangers, because again, you're dumping a ton of cards into your deck because it's going to go to fatigue. But in the other matchups, I never had it in the deck. It just never felt like it was going to do enough, and I was going to get caught with it in hand when I needed to be able to use it and I couldn't.
Right.
So, but against the Rangers, it was okay. But into the other decks, it wasn't great. And I expected it to be a little bit better, but I think I'm in that regard. I forgot, like I sort of didn't think of the fact that there are a billion cards with or feels like a billion cards with damage can't be prevented on them.
Yeah. Another card that I think performed really well for me was the Virulent Touch.
Really?
Yeah.
I had a hard time with that one. Toxicity and that one were not good for me most cases.
With me, it started, I was using it to pitch early, and then when you get to the late portions of the game, when they're like sub 5 health, if you present that to them, usually they don't have a lot of equipment left or whatever at that stage of the game, and then you kind of create this weird scenario where it's like, okay, well, if I block this thing, then I get the Blood Rot, and then I'm going to have a way to like pay for that, or if I don't block it, then I'm just straight taking damage, right? Like it's a pick your poison thing, quite literally. Pick your, the blood rot fox poison or not. And it worked really well for me in the late game. I think early game it feels really bad, but you were talking about how you were doing the pitch stack stuff early, and I was too after that first game almost went to fatigue. And for me in the late game, it started to feel really good, specifically the red one, because it's the 4 is already an awkward break point. So then it becomes like I take 4, even if I use a block 3 on it, then I'm taking 1 and then I have to deal with the blood rot, or I can, spend 2 cards on it to block it. But then, again, usually in that nitty gritty, then you're stuck with a 2-card hand. Like I said, it just felt really good in the late stages.
Yeah, I guess I am being a little hard on it just because I don't think I had when I was playing Riptide. I only had it in Arachne, where it wasn't very good. The card that was like aces was Come to Fight. Like that thing was always good.
Yeah, Come to Fight was always good. What's the I'm drawing a blank now. What's the one where it's when you play it, the next card you play from Arsenal gets buffed, but then you can also Scout the Periphery. That was amazing in Riptide for me.
In Riptide and on Azalea, it was nuts. Like that was so good.
Well, like Riptide especially, because a lot of times my sequence when I was using that card with Riptide was you play the Scout, and then on playing the Scout, you load with Riptide's ability, and so you're loading face down, and so then I can use my arrow or my bow to add the aim counter and then fire the arrow. So I was throwing huge arrows when I would get that to work.
Yeah. No, that felt really good. I had that going in Riptide too, and I was just like, damn, this is. And like the one time I played Azalea with it, it was like, look at the top. Is it an arrow? Oh, good. Dominate this bitch. And that felt really good too. So I think in both cases that, for the Ranger case, that is probably in draft will be a pretty high pick. You see a red Scout the Periphery, it's probably something worth considering over a lot of cards. That's just my thought. The card that single-handedly was the most like was my favorite card across the weekend was Blue Sneak Attack. Specifically because I had the Go Again legs. And so I'd be like, empty hand, one, just one. And they're like, what am I at? 5, just one. And they're like, 1, like 1. Cards in the hand, nope. Floating, 1 float. No blocks. Reacts, kill you. And it was just like, what the fuck? God damn it. It's like, this is sneaky good. This is fun as hell. Like, that card was amusing to play with. And it won me 2 games today alone, where it was just like, okay, like, I guess, like, this is fun all of a sudden. Hurl was one of the other ones because just like the guaranteed damage is so good. It's just beautiful.
Well, sometimes guaranteed.
Well, sure.
As far as like limited stuff goes, I will say the Seekers pieces of equipment performed much better than I thought they would.
Yeah,
the opt was relevant several times, as well as the just like prevent one, whether it's from hurls or the Riptide ability or a bunch of stuff. So like I will say, I thought they were just going to be like bad versions of the Quell stuff, but no, they actually are pretty relevant in this format.
They're very good, and they're very good, very relevant.
So I see on your notes here, our next thing that we were supposed to talk about is what would I play in a CC event with Outsiders Legal. So let me first get the initial one out of the way. Pummel Queen, Rainbow Pummels. I'm already like working on a list, obviously, because that's just me. However, I do have, now that I've got my hands on the cards a bit, a couple of other things that I want to try. One is I want to try Riptide when I have access to New Horizons, because now that I've got to mess around with this play a card from hand, load a thing into your arsenal, I think that he's going to be a lot of fun with New Horizons.
It's really weird to me because I know that we we were really skeptical, I guess would be the best way to put it, about what Barbed Castaway was going to be able to do. because we hadn't seen Riptide yet.
Right.
And then it was like, oh wait, that's text. With New Horizons, that turns into a nightmare. If you can make Riptide good, like if you can find a way, I feel like if you're playing Riptide in CC, you're just always shuffling your entire deck in. There's no sideboard.
Probably. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, but like I don't know. I got to play him, and you know, one of my favorite things to do is draw cards. And while you're not drawing a lot of cards with him, it feels like it because you're also just like, I play this, I load that, I do this. Like you're just interacting with all of your zones, and it was a lot of fun. So I do want to give that a whirl at some point. And then after playing the Arachne that also ran a lot of the assassin traps, I want to either play a CC version of traditional Arachne, or I would even be willing to do it with Yuzuri again, but play a far more defensive assassin. I already felt like the old Arachne was kind of built for fatigue anyway with the contract and the banish stuff, so I think some of the traps helping shore that up makes sense. But one of the things that really appeals to me about trying to play a defensive version of Yuzuri is that I think you can get people to either like overblock, or you can sneak in a lot of really easy contract activations, specifically your ones with the breakpoints at like 4 or 5. So if they throw a 3 block in front and then you swap out for, you know, a leave no witnesses, for example, it's only 1 point over, but that's probably going to feel bad for a lot of classes to use a D-react or whatever on the 4. The caveat is old him. Old him is going to do old him things, and I think that'll end up being a bad matchup. But I do think that there is some merit in trying to play like a defensive Yuzuri that focuses on, you still use your isolates, like it's Rainbow Isolate to set up your contracts. You swap in the contracts, and then you're just constantly using your equipment to block, break them, and then bring them back, because hopefully you're just pinging away with your contracts, and then you just play her like fatigue. Because I legitimately think that you could, similar to the whole, like you play the pile with Riptide, I think you could do that with a defensive version of her and just hope that the contracts whittle them away and you play hyper defensive.
So, gonna ask it. Let's say you were playing in a classic constructed event with a PTI and a gold cold foil on the line, say Saturday. Which one of those heroes would you be taking?
I mean, me personally, I would be taking Pummel Queen, but that's and so here's why though. The reality is that is something that I would feel comfortable with, because it's going to be a play style that is similar to Bravo that I have a lot of reps on. It's not going to be 100% the same, but it's going to be similar. So if it's like Saturday and I don't have time to put in more reps, do a lot of refining, then like if I have to pick a new hero and go with it, I'm going to go with the one that I feel comfortable with. And I do think that Pummel Uzuri in particular has a lot of ways to leak damage, because not only do you have Command and Conquer, but you can also run, you know, obviously sneak attack and whatever, but Wreck Havoc, Red Wreck Havoc is actually still really solid because of the way the timing stuff works. So if you're not familiar, because I wanted to make sure that I understood it properly, and so I asked Brian Gottlieb, right? If you're not familiar with the sequence, the timing, you play your stealth, then they do blocks, right? So let's just say hypothetically you start with an isolate, it's a dominate, they do their 1 card, right? Then you activate the Yuzuri ability and the card goes face down. Now they can respond before it's flipped, or then they can let it resolve and then respond after the fact. Now that's relevant because if they don't respond before the flip and you flip a Command and Conquer or a Wreck Havoc, once those are revealed, defense reactions can't be added. So then you're free to tack on the pummel as well, do all of the stuff, wreck their arsenal, whatever. But also with the mind games, you can also sometimes banish cards and then have it be nothing.
Also, that
there's I think a lot of potential for just really putting your opponent into a pickle. Another great one, for example, is if you swing with like an isolator or whatever, and they say no blocks, then I wanted to run cut down to size as well, because if they no block and then you cut down to size into a pummel, well, then you just crippling crushed somebody.
You did,
Or
yeah, effectively, yes.
For a lot of damaging cards. So anyway, I have a list. It's just a starting point. I want to put reps on it, but if I had to pick something like right now playing Saturday, it would probably be some version of that, because I would be comfortable with it.
Yeah, this is an entirely self-serving question because I don't know what the fuck I want to do. And there's part of me that wants to try to get a Katsu list together, but there's not enough time. Like, there's too many things to take into account when building a Katsu list. There's a part of me that thinks that you could just play Fi and probably be just fine. Not to say that that's a good idea, but with, because I think, Fatigue Oldham, like super control Oldham, is still going to be a deck that's played and probably played in fairly high numbers. And Fi's never getting through that. Same story with, like, it'd be hard to play Briar, right? It's just, you're going to do well against the decks you do well against, but eventually you're going to run into the Oldham and Icelander matchups, and those are a lot rougher. So I feel like those are off the table for me. I know there are some good Azalea lists out there. I don't know what they are, and I don't know if I have time to be smart enough to figure them out.
Yeah.
So if any of our listeners know of a good one and are not playing and would like to share, feel free. I will listen intently. And if you give me something that's bad, I won't mind. It's fine. Totally okay. But there's also the reality that I'm just bad. That's totally reasonable and probable, honestly. The pummel version of Azuri, I've been trying to just see if an aggro version has legs, and it doesn't. At least not in a way that makes it feel like it'd be better than any other aggro deck out there. I don't think that that's the way that Azuri is built. I have yet to spend any time on Riptide, but I feel like Riptide would be a 72 card monstrosity of a deck that you just play everything all the time. And
yeah, my biggest problem with Riptide is just Oldham, because once you get into the like fatigue versus fatigue matchup, the fact that they can like blue pitch hammer and you can't is a pretty big deal. So outside of that, win. Yeah, outside of that, I don't know, but
yeah, and I do feel like there are quite a few cards that exist, and I'm not playing Dromai, not happening. Like, illusionists are cops. I am not a cop. Will not play Dromai. Nope, not happening. You can't make me. I don't. Flesh and Pod Legal, a subsidiary of Black Hole Legal, is still the trash can next to Jordan Kennedy's desk. However, they have advised me that talking to the police or playing as the cops is definitely not something I should be doing. And so I'm going to listen to that legal advice and not play Illusionist ever. That's fair. That leaves a pretty thin line. I could try to play Fatigue Oldham, but I think I'd bore myself to tears. So in reality, I think that I would try to find either Alexi or an Azalea list that worked, I thought worked, and go from there. But it's rough. Right now, I love it that it's so different right now. It's also possible that I could just play Katsu, but I'd have to figure that list out. And again, I don't feel like I have the time to do it. But if it was gun to my head, I had to pick a deck out now. A dick out. Pick a dick out. Like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. But if I had to do it now, I would probably find some form or fashion of a Ranger list and go at it. I think that they got a lot of help, and that the Azalea bounty is not lasting very long. I think that's gone at the
Yeah.
latest for the first weekend of RTN season.
Yeah. Speaking like of Azalea help, another card that I felt like did better, and I was just on Riptide, but did better than I thought it would, was Widowmaker. So like once you go to Azalea where you have Dominate, Red Widowmaker is a bit of a house.
As long as they don't have something to just randomly block with equipment wise.
Right.
That doesn't blade break. Like that's the biggest thing. If they have anything battle worn or the Van Braces, they can just shove in front of it and not pay. Like it reduces Widowmaker. That's the only caveat to that, because it does say cards. But otherwise, like it does make for some very awkward blocking in limited. That's for sure. It's like, shit, it's either, well, especially if you pump it. Like if it's like, the Red Widowmaker and you're just like 7 or 10, pick one. They're like, okay, that's not what I had in mind, but all right. That card felt really good. And I did like that one quite a bit more than I anticipated. But I honestly, drafting this set, I think is going to be very different from sealed. Just generally speaking, where sealed feels like Ninja just isn't playable or isn't possible to be played, and the first draft is going to be people going, oh wait, hold on, I'm going to draft this entire combo line since everybody thinks Ninja's bad, and then they're just going to go and do the combo line like 4 times and kill somebody, and it's like, oh, probably should have paid attention to that. Oops. And Bonds of Ancestry is a rare. It's not that hard to keep going. So I think I think draft is going to be significantly different. But we did have some rules reprised from Josh Scott, our intrepid leader of the rules. What will you call him? Rules guru, rules master. He's got to have like a real title, right?
Rules Czar.
Czar?
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. So the Czar, Josh Scott. Yeah, it fits. I like it. Like, we're gonna go with it. So rules Czar, Josh Scott, had a couple of things that he wanted to point out in some rules reprises, specifically number 10 and 11. The first was in reference to heroes and tokens for limited and what can and cannot be done as far as deck building goes. Long story short, you can, in any limited event where you don't register your hero, change as much as you want. You can swap heroes all the time. When it comes to, and I don't like the last, I mean, it's been a while for a lot of people there. This game has grown quite a bit since, the last Uprising, I guess Worlds wasn't too long ago, but the last professional level or even competitive level Uprising Limited, with competitive, you register your pool and then you select a hero. So you're bound to that hero for the entire event. However, you can change your deck as much as you want to within the cards in your pool. You don't register a deck. You register the pool. And the only thing that you're really stuck to is your hero. So he went ahead and went through those things and what things were the tokens. So like, as we didn't get right at first, but Darick got right later. The specialized quivers are tokens. So both Rangers get them. Which is, I love that every hero has both weapon slots filled, even though Rangers don't have a weapon. But they still manage to have both their weapon slots filled. I think that's actually nice. It does feel symmetrical, if nothing else. So that's interesting. The other thing it talks about, and this is kind of important for cards like Brush Off and Peace of Mind, is prevention effects and power increase on cards and how they work. So the examples they give are with Brush Off is probably the biggest one. But Darick has a very good Brush Off story and can tell you exactly how Brush Off works. Darick, how does Brush Off work?
Brush Off sucks. Reason I got second place is because I went to hurl a dagger at somebody and they happen to have a blue Brush Off in hand.
Exactly, so a blue Brush Off.
Prevented my 1 damage to stay alive. No, this is actually interesting because the other side of Brush Off came up at my pre-release. I was swinging for 7. Somebody blocked for 3. So I had 4 remaining, and then they tried to prevent the rest with 2 brush offs.
Does not work.
Does not work because the wording on brush off is for the red one anyway, 3 or less, and then it's a rainbow, so it goes down to 2 and 1. But because the damage being presented was 4, the prevention doesn't trigger for either of them. It's not like you prevent 3 with 1 left over and then the other one prevents the 1. You can't divide it like that. So that is very relevant. But yeah, brush off also sucks when you're trying to hurl daggers at folks. Just to give you an idea of how crazy this game was, it was an Arachne versus Uzuri game, and my opponent had thrown both of his daggers at me, and I had thrown 1 at him and was trying to throw another for the victory, and they had the brush off. Like, we were at 1 versus 1 health for forever, it felt like, and it was just chaos. And then I ended up getting fatigued out. So that's how I came in second. But
yeah, the other one with brush off is if you attack for 6, let's say, they block 3 and then play brush off, and then you attack react to increase the damage. Brush off doesn't work anymore.
Yes, it's just wasted.
Off. Yeah, it's just gone.
Well,
so that is those are 2.
It doesn't prevent that damage, but if you were to then on the same turn present 3 or less, it would soak that up because it's just there until the end of the turn. So yeah, all sorts of
shenanigans and chicanery. Yeah, I mean there's some very interactions in there. The other ones were dealing with spinning wheel kick and amplifying arrow, which I guess which confuse a lot of people, which I get. But effectively, whenever you play an effect that would increase their power, it just adds 1 to it for each instance. So it was spinning wheel kick was talking about the instance coming from twin twisters and from itself, from the combo of twin twisters. And so instead of getting +1 and +1, it got +2 and +2 because it gets it from both effects. And so I thought that was very interesting. Amplifying arrow just reads weird, to be honest, because it talks about it being face up in zones. And it technically is face up, like the way it was described in the article, the way I read it, and I would love to be wrong here if I am, but it reads like they should have just said it just always gets +1 or an additional +1 whenever its power is increased, because it says whenever it's face up in a zone. And it's like, okay, well, when isn't it face up in a zone that would have its power increase that matters? Like, that doesn't make a ton of sense. But alas, so basically it just gets +1. The plus, any plus is given an addition. It gives itself an additional +1. Is how it works from the way I read it. Did you have a different read on that at all?
No. But I also I haven't necessarily had it come up, but that was my understanding.
Yeah. So I don't understand why it was worded the way it's worded, but 6 1/2 dozen the other. Unless we're going to start blocking with face down cards, and I don't know. Like I just can't think of a reason. But please go and read those rules reprises. They're usually very helpful, especially for new players and especially for people who are coming back and have not seen the way that they have made some of those changes. And as per always, instants do not count as blocking or defending for the purposes of dominate. So you can still block from hand and then peace of mind from hand on a dominated attack. It doesn't ever make sense to me, but you can still do it. Wish that wasn't the case, but it's okay. I've gotten used to it. I know we touched on this last weekend, or last episode, with Dusk Till Dawn is the next supplemental set. And so we got Light and Shadow coming back. We expect to see Chain and Prism coming back It basically said that in the press release, but it did say predecessors or whatever, and to me that just means it's different versions. But some people have pointed out it's like, oh, it could just be a different character, and it's like, sure. But since it's a supplemental set, I would expect more than 2 heroes. I'm thinking like a Dark Minerva might be something that's coming. Because that is something interesting. It sounds like Detroit here. There are sirens. Or Baltimore, I guess. That's another thing for people to lean into. But like a Dark Minerva maybe from the stories, or like a Shiana that is a Shiana that's bent towards the light maybe. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of interested in what they do with the other heroes in this. Do you think that we're going to see something like that?
I think that it could be that we get a full, potentially anyway, like a full Monarch revisit, just to preemptively give us new options in case the other ones LL. Maybe they're kind of learning from their mistake, but I don't suspect that to be the case. I suspect we're going to get a new chain, a new prism. I think that there's actually a good chance that we might only get adult versions as well, kind of like how we only got, Star of the Show. I think that we could just get like an adult chain and an adult prism because that's where they were LL'd, and then we might get other new young heroes. So I think it would be really cool if they introduced either new young heroes, or as you were saying, like light or dark versions of some other ones. Part of the reason I kind of want new is I think it would be really cool, like storytelling wise, to provide new heroes that are like light as young and then dark as adult, or vice versa. Right?
I think that'd be sweet.
Like they're like, you'd have I don't know, we'll call it Darky McDark, and then the adult version would be, the Redeemed, right? It'd be like Darky McDark the Redeemed, and then you'd have like Lighty McLight, and then Lighty McLight the Fallen or something.
There has to be this. Okay. Like my Lady McLight and Darky McDark. Okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing problematic with this at all.
We're talking about Light and Shadow.
Totally fine. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Yep, totally fine. Not worried about it. Not worried about it whatsoever. Please continue.
You're only nervous because you're sober for this show. Let's be honest.
That is. Oh God, I am. That's true. Otherwise, I wouldn't give this a fucking second thought, would I?
You are aware enough to see how problematic your new co-host is. Finally.
Ugh. Gross. I need a drink.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now I feel like it's one, this show's going too fast. We're moving right along here because we haven't derailed enough, and I think that's my fault. I think it's me being sober doesn't derail us enough, and that's on me. Like, that's just a problem that I have to address by being sufficiently lubricated whenever I do this show. Yeah. So my apologies for this kind of being zoom, folks. This is 100% on me, and I apologize profusely. But man, I should be hammered. That's all there is to it. I'm more entertaining, apparently. My wife is literally standing right there, shaking her head, like vociferously shaking her head, and then cackling like a witch. But so. I feel like this set is going to be, I think, as narrow of a set as we found so far, right? Like, a lot of these supplemental sets are just very all over the place. They're not really focused in on classes, talents, anything else.
Well, so the interesting thing, though, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be. Like, I think we also might just be looking too much into it because obviously the name is very thematic, and we know that we're going to get Prism and Chain back at some point this year, and all signs point to this. And so I think we're just kind of assuming that the entire supplemental set will go that route, but it could just be like an Everfest, or a Dynasty, right?
I
Like
could.
Dynasty was the follow-up to Uprising, and yeah, there was some dragon support and whatever, but like they still went pretty wide. And Everfest was like after Tales, and sure, there was some additional elemental stuff in there, but it still went pretty wide. So
Yeah. I, yes, I agree. And it definitely is not, it doesn't have to be that way. But I feel like, one, I'm still kind of disappointed that it's not actually a LSS making a From Dusk Till Dawn card game, because playing as Harvey Keitel's character with the RV would be perfect. I would love doing that.
I do actually think that we're potentially, we're talking about new heroes. I know we're going to at some point, because it just makes too much sense thematically, get a Shadow Assassin. And since they're still trying to flesh that class out, I could see them throw like a young hero, Shadow Assassin, Selma Hayek in.
It would actually just be, well, then they'll have the Shadow Assassin Sex Machine as one of the heroes with the gun that is.
I was gonna say, I assume that's the Light Ranger.
That's the Light Ranger? Sure.
Yeah.
Makes total sense. That's the Light Ranger.
Yep.
Well, I guess like
it's like calling a big man tiny,
Oh, okay. Shit. Of course it is. Yes, you're correct. Big man tiny, fat man slim, all the things, right? Like, yep, 100% true. I can't. God damn it. LSS, please print the From Dusk Till Dawn card game, though, or wrap it into this. Otherwise, we're gonna have to take this over to Ravensburger to incorporate it into Lorcana. The other thing we're getting in this set, so maybe this does lean into your assassin thing a little bit, is a surgical extraction reprint. They're throwing it into. So my understanding is they're throwing it into Dusk Till Dawn with the Dynasty set number.
Yes.
So it's not part of Dusk Till Dawn's set, but will occur at the inverse rate of the short print of surgical extraction. So we'll have effectively the correct number out in the wild.
The right number will be out in the wild, theoretically. But because it's another supplemental set and those tend to be opened at a slower rate, it'll still be a bit before I think we see the price come down, just because it'll take a bit to trickle in.
Before peak supply, right? Yep. Like, and that's, it would have been really awkward for them to try to print it into a non-supplemental set, because obviously Outsiders was at the printers when they figured out, oh shit, we're short printed over here. And so the next thing they could fit it into was this, and waiting for another draftable set to fit it into would have been way too long to be open at a reasonable rate.
Well, and this actually tackles a couple of other potential issues. One, the first time it was printed, it was not in a draftable set. So if you do wait to a draftable set, then that might be messing up any sort of ratios or whatever that you weren't intending. The other reason that it makes sense to just try to jam it into this one as well is that it doesn't long-term mess up your history pack stuff. So when we think about how they do history packs, and they're usually the sets printed in a year, like later on when we get the history pack version of this, it's not, we're not going to have surgical extraction spread across 2 years, because they were all still in that same like time frame. So this, I think it was just the right call, whether or not there is an actual like Shadow Assassin. Either way, I think this is just the right call. Get it in the hands of the players as soon as possible. Don't worry about messing up your set drafting stuff, blah, blah, blah. So,
and don't fuck up collectors like me by giving it a Dusk Till Dawn set number, because if you did, and I had to own 6 of these pieces of shit at the inflated cost of whatever the fuck they would be, I might get a little tilted. Just saying, like, that'd be a lot.
I mean, you say that, but you're going to end up owning like 6 surgical extractions anyway, just because you're you.
Like, quite honestly, that is one of the like you're not wrong, but that is one of the few cards that I don't have more than a playset of. I just have 3. That's it. I don't think I don't think I opened a single one of them. I think I had to trade and buy for them and buy them.
I
Like,
opened one and then trade/bought for my other 2. Thank you,
yeah.
Keith.
Well, I mean, we do have an in, I guess, as far as that goes. Speaking of that in, where are we going to be this weekend?
Chicago.
Chicago.
For the Brawl, for the Realm Circuit Brawl. This event is partnering with MinMax. It's going to be a wonderful time. I'm really looking forward to it because we have the Speakeasy, which every time we've ever done it has been a very wonderful event, memorable. It's just such a good community thing. It's not just like, oh, hey, me and my friends go and have fun, right? Like, it'd be one thing if it was like, hey, Logan and I are talking about this thing that like 10 whole people are going to appreciate. That's not the case. Every time we've ever done these, all of the people that have attended have been like laughing, having a great time. So they just continue to get bigger and better as well. I'm really looking forward to it. So we got the Speakeasy. Obviously, we have the events. I get to get back in the casting booth again for Flesh and Blood, so I'm very excited for that. But just outsiders, right?
Yeah.
Really excited
Release
to see
weekend.
that. Release weekend out in the wild. Get to see whether or not anything surprises us, whether anybody has spicy tech to bring against the icy powerhouses, and just a lot of knowns and unknowns. I think that's what makes me so hyped about this, because I know I'm going to have a good time. I know the Speakeasy is going to be great. I don't know how any of the events are going to unfold because of all of the new variables and all the exciting new heroes and whatever. So Chicago is going to be great.
There's a lot like that's going to go on. I mean, there's also the 2K Blitz on Sunday event. So we could see Arachne Solitary Confinement and in Little Daddy Riptide getting in there, and also your Pummel Queen in her Cold Foil Glory doing some work. And like the Speakeasy, my dry out ends on Thursday. So I will be in full entertainment mode. You don't have to worry about this very, very dry toast version of me. And in Chicago, I will be fully liquored up for your enjoyment. That did not come out right. Holy fuck, was that bad?
Yeah, well.
Okay, let's put a pin in that. How about we put a pin in that?
I'm glad that you won't be dry, if only because right now you're already sporting a lovely golden tan after your time out in the sun. So you're a bit Saharan at the moment. That's the way I would describe you. Saharan, very dry.
Saharan.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
Very dry, very tan.
Yeah, I like that. That feels good. Saharan, we'll go with it. I mean, I did go to 9 baseball games, so
and a hockey game.
And a hockey game. That hockey game was unreal. Like, it was a 4,600 person arena for an NHL game. Like, nope, that is not something that should ever happen. But holy shit, is it electric? It was 2 teams that aren't very good. And the atmosphere was awesome. And it was full. People from fucking Alberta coming to Phoenix to watch a hockey game in a place that is called the Mullet, literally called Mullet Arena. Can't get better.
Sometimes those events are the ones that I think surprise you, because the second best football game that I've ever been to in my entire life was the year that Buffalo got snowed out, and so they moved their game against the Jets to Detroit.
Yep.
And so they gave away tickets for free. Stark was like 2 years old, so we took him to his first football game. We went out. So obviously you're playing in Detroit. Not a lot of Jets fans there, not a lot of Buffalo fans, but the stadium was packed. And because nobody was like invested in either side, it was just cheering for everything. Like the whole place was wild because nobody was there for any other agenda or reason or whatever than to just see a good game. And so it was just one of those things, right? So I think that in your case, right, you get a bunch of people hockey fans and that tiny,
just hockey fans. Yep.
and it's going to be wild.
There were cheerleaders at a hockey game. Like, shit I had never seen before. I was like, wow, this is very different and awesome. One thing I did glance over, because apparently reading is also something I can't do sober. We do have an April Armory kit. Looks like this time we're going to get the cold foil crow's nest, which is the azalea quiver. And then rainbow foil extended art laces. I think I'm actually more excited for those than I am the cold
pretty
foil.
Solid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're all like red playables.
Right. That's the best part, is that you're not hoping, oh shit, I hope I don't get the yellow. Instead, it's like 100%, red playables. And then the playmat this time is Arachne Solitary Confinement. It also looks like same as the Azuri mat. This one does not have zones on it. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm a very big zones person.
So this is interesting because I am also a very big zones person, but somebody had told me that most of the character mats don't have zones, the idea being that they want to show off the character, and I can get behind that. But then I remember, because I'm a Bravo guy, right, my Star of the Show mat has zones.
Yeah,
so I could go either way. I kind of like that my Star of the Show one has zones because I love zones, but I got my Azuri mat, and I am excited that one doesn't have zones, because when I get my Outsiders product, I'm probably going to do some box opening videos for YouTube, and it's going to be nice that I can use that mat with no zones or whatever, and just have that for the video content. So I'm going back and forth. I think that, if I'm being honest, I think that mixing is fine, but it's also just weird because, like, if you really want, like, if there's one you really like and you have a preference, then it's going to suck if it's only in that one. It'd almost be kind of nice if you had some mats with zones and some mats without, but with the same art, so that you could choose. But
yeah, I think that people should hit us up on Discord and Twitter and let us know if you are a zones or no zones person. I'm kind of curious how that splits out. Like, is it kind of more of a 50-50 prospect, or is it some people prefer them 100% of the time? That's me. I prefer them 100% of the time. Or are you somebody that says, take it or leave it? I like to see the art, which doesn't make sense to me because you're still putting cards all over the fucking mat. You still can't see the art. But that's not meant to sound near as patronizing as it just did. That, however, like, Arachne Solitary Confinement's art is also just disgustingly awesome. So I'll want one of these regardless. But I was very happy that the Pits mat that I won today, that you didn't win, but that I did win, has zones on it. So that made me happy. If only that wasn't a brush off. If only.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that it was a brush off was in fact kind of the Pits. So
I don't. Nope.
So this is an interesting development. Ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls and everyone else, I want you to understand that Logan laughed at one of my horrible puns. This is what happens when he's sober.
Yep.
It wasn't immediate condescension. Be sober.
Nope.
Yeah.
It is not a good dynamic. I need to make sure that I have pure disdain every single fucking time and I haven't said fuck near as much, but every single time that you do a pun needs to be met with pure derision. And when it's not, that means I am not doing my job, and I am enabling you. And that is not something that a good friend and a good co-host would do. We don't have any listener questions this week at all. Not a one.
Well, I think that's probably because they were afraid you wouldn't be coherent enough to answer them.
Yeah, it's weird that I'm much more coherent when I'm drinking. But so yeah, next time, make sure that ask us a couple questions. I don't have any host questions. Did you have any host questions?
I've never had any host questions.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. You did too.
Sometimes we get questions from adoring listeners like Charcoal, and
you on this show, as you asked why Keith's username was violin spelled backwards.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that.
So you did.
I did.
But we have had charcuterie, Charlemagne, Charcoal, Charisma, God, what else? Yeah, charlatan.
Champagne.
All of them. Oh yeah, champagne. Yeah, all of them asked a question.
Pagan.
Ken Pagan.
Oh man.
Yeah. God damn it.
Tan and Grace.
Tan and Grace, Brendan Patrick, John Blevins.
Yeah, John Blevins.
You're anybody but you, I guess.
Anybody but me. And it just keeps happening.
It just keeps happening. I don't fucking... The only reason the one guy got it right is because he knew what Majin Bay looked like. Not because he knew what you looked like.
Nobody has identified me. They've only identified other people.
Correct. So far, in Flake's game, the score is 2-1, with the one being somebody identifying the correct person as not being Charmer.
Yes.
And the other two being straight misses. And one of them, well, the best one was Matt Rogers saying that they're the same person.
Yeah.
And this is after I daggered him in Indianapolis.
For not knowing who I was. We did that to him in person. It wasn't like it was out of nowhere. We already did this bit in person to Matt Rogers' face.
Nope.
Well, I mean, this is right up there with, I was also a guest on, what is it? Hobbies and Happiness, another podcast.
Yeah.
Wonderful people. And I even talked about like the background behind the Tan and Grace joke and how I'm very forgettable. And then when they posted the video and they tweeted about me being a guest, they spelled my name wrong.
Right. They spelled it with 2 R's. I'm just like, you can't make this shit up. Like,
nope.
I thought you were. When we first met, I thought you were bullshitting me 1,000%. And then the first 3 people we talked to, one called you Brendan Patrick.
Yep.
One was one of your locals and was wondering where you played. And you're like, dude, I've played you before at the same shop that you always go to.
Yep.
And I can't remember the other circumstance, but they also misidentified you.
Yeah. Well, so we had the one person who reintroduced himself to me because we had met earlier in the night. Now, in their defense, that person had been drinking. And then there was the person who asked me if I was the LSS rep that was there because they saw me in a suit coat. And they were like, are you the guy from LSS? I was like, I'm casting the event right now. I'm just on break. Like, huh?
Yeah. Someday I wonder if they're going to be able to do the whole put my picture and your picture up next to each other and say, okay, can you name either of these individuals and see how many people can name one of us and which one is named more?
Well, normally I would have just said it'll be you by a mile. But then when somebody walked up to you and said, hey, Charmer, then they lost all faith.
While you were standing next to me. That's still my favorite, is you're standing fucking next to me.
Yep.
And I'm just like, how? I was wearing a hockey jersey with my fucking name on the back.
Yep.
I want to point out that is something. Okay.
So other fun story. At the previous Indy, so not the one that just happened, but there was another calling in Indy the year before. I was at that one with Majin Bay. We were split in a hotel room, and while we were in line for one of the events, somebody introduced themselves to him and said that they loved his Runeterra content and had this big long conversation with him about like the seasonal event that they were just on, that Majin Bay had competed on. And I'm standing next to Majin Bay and I cast that event and they had no idea who I was.
Yep. That is the thing that happens.
Yep.
I don't get it. I never will. I never will. Okay, I want to get out of here. We have eclipsed an hour at least. This isn't one of our marathon episodes because we don't have a ton to talk about. We will have a lot more to talk about next week with a robust slate of tournament results from the Chicago Brawl. I will implore anybody that's going to be the Chicago Brawl, find us. I am the more recognizable of the two, obviously. And so if you come find me, I will then direct you towards Charmer. But hopefully he's standing with a group of people and I will not tell you which one he is. You have to guess. And so this will become a very fun game for all of us. But do, like, in all seriousness, please come say hi. Tell us what we're doing bad. Tell us what we're doing good. Tell us that we should just quit the show. We probably won't listen to you. But we do like engaging with the people and that listen, and we have a good time. Like, that's really what we're trying to do. Have some laughs, enjoy ourselves. Darick will be casting it, so you can also just listen to him. And I believe it's you, Flake, and DM Armada that will
Yep.
be casting this one. So,
And I think Ethan as well. I think there's 4 of us this time.
is it 4? I couldn't remember for sure. But so yeah, so please watch. It's going to be a great production. I'm 90% certain that they will start throwing shit at the camera, because that is something Flake and DM Armada do on a regular basis. Like, they just start throwing shit. So there'll be littered cards and maybe a passed out Elaine on the floor of the casting room again. You never know. But actually, I don't think Elaine's going to be there. This time it'd be Carolina that's passed out on the floor of the casting room. Either way, one of the two. But this is a friendly reminder that the merch store is live. The link is in the show notes. It is also pinned in our Discord in the announcements section. Let's give a quick shout out to our Patreon subscribers. We'll do our associate producers, which are Andy and Kenny. And then our executive producers and on up, we have Chris, Nick D, Josh, Popo Mike, Ed, May, Philip, and Taylor. If you're interested in becoming a patron, please go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. I will be redoing the tiers, so you don't need to, if you don't see a tier you like, send me a message and say, hey, I would like to see something like this, and I would probably do it. Remember that any and all Patreon money will go towards the budget to make me not sober on the shows anymore. So it's probably in your best interest to give us more Patreon money. As far as the show, you can always contact us on Twitter at FleshPod. You can also send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. You can find the podcast on, well, you've obviously found it already, but we're also on YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can find the content. We should be on it. If we are missing somewhere, please let me know. I would like to get that corrected as soon as possible. Darick, where can they find you?
I don't know how to answer this. You ask me every week, but they can't recognize me. How are they going to find me?
Well, because they can spell. They're not.
Maybe.
They're not, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Search for Charmer. Search for Charm 3R. Search for Darick. That's Darick. But apparently, you also have to search for Darrick, Derick, Derek. You name it. It's been done. But the best ways, all jokes aside, the best ways to find me, if you just search for Charmer, that's term 3R, because I'm a nerd. I'm on Twitch, I'm on YouTube, and then I'm that Charmer on most of the social media platforms. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, etc., etc. And that's the best ways to find me. Discord as well, right? We have a Flesh and Pod Discord. I'm in there hanging out. You can say hello.
You also have your own Discord.
I do have my own Discord. I talk about Flesh and Blood there too.
Yeah, and as well as other games like you do.
Yeah,
you talk about a lot. I'm not even in that Discord. I'm just assuming. But yeah, and you can find me at Logan Peterson on Twitter. I also run the Flesh and Pod Twitter for the most part. So it's all me anymore. But so either way is a good way to get a hold of me. And also in our Discord, I'm responding to anything, and my DMs are open to anybody that I share a Discord server with. My wife is hacking up a lung, it sounds like.
Yeah, it sounds like she's dying. You should go take care of that.
She's insured. And so you can then also find me here every week with the venerable Darick Oswald. But yeah, I probably should go take care of my wife. I can definitely hear that she's probably dying now. So either that or it's one of the cats, one of the two. But yeah, so if you don't see us in Chicago this weekend, we will talk to you all next week. Bye.